Shallow Waters by Anita Kopacz needed more depth. Hello, everyone. I'm author R.L. Raintree, and this is Reels and Reads, where I give honest reviews and occasional spoilers. Shallow Waters is a historical fantasy by Anita Kopacz. It is tailored towards adults, but this could easily be a young adult fiction novel. It gives us mermaids, it gives us Yoruba deities such as Yemaya and Obatala. I first saw this book while scrolling through Donkey of the Day on The Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God, and he had this book sitting on his table. So I thought I'd give it a read. And yeah, I probably should have read it sooner. Definitely should have read it sooner. It's been sitting on my bookshelf for a couple of years, however long the book's been out. I bought it when it first got out. I got the hardcover copy, and yeah, should have read it. Should have read it sooner. But let's start with the things that I liked. One of the things that I liked is seeing Yemaya and Obatala in a fantasy story. I'm sure there are thousands of books out there like that now, but I'm not a fantasy reader. And the reason why is because fantasy books make me feel dumb. There's a whole world that has to be built. There's maps at the beginning of the book, there's glossaries and dictionaries, and I can't do it. I'm sorry, and that's wild because I read nonfiction like it's fiction. But I will say that I liked that this was fantasy that I was able to get through without any confusion or misunderstandings. The other thing I liked about it is that it's also historical, and I cannot do historical. The intergenerational trauma in my bloodline is just too great for me to ever enjoy something that takes place in a time of slavery. Just getting through Sulla, which is post slavery, was hard for me. I mean, I have family members that, my great grand aunt, I guess you would call that, my great grand aunt, my great grandmother's sister. I We were with her when she passed away, and she had to be restrained because her bones were so fragile. They didn't want her getting out of bed. She had already hurt her hip, and she immediately went back to slavery. She thought she was being recaptured. So if that's happening that close in my bloodline, reading historical fiction is not on my list of things to do. And yet, that being said, I still picked up this book and was definitely able to read it without being too triggered. I mean, there were some tense moments for me, but I wasn't too triggered. The other thing I like about this book is how there is a scene, and this is a light spoiler, where she is on the Underground Railroad, she being Yemaya, and someone betrays her. Someone who was supposed to be there to help her. And we did have that happening on the Underground Railroad. A lot of times people like to leave that part out, but this author left it in, and I did appreciate that. Now let's talk about the stuff I didn't like. And unfortunately, there's more things that I didn't like than things that I liked. First, let's say this book should have been a young adult novel, and I say that because it's an and then novel. And then Yemaya comes out of a cocoon, and then Yemaya meets Obatala, and then Yemaya is on the Underground Railroad, and then it's all and then. Um, there are no peaks, there are no acts. It's almost like a run on sentence. It's just everything happens to Yemaya, which is another thing I didn't like. Everything just happens to her. It's like she's about to be captured by pirates at the beginning, and a little boy named Obatala saves her. And then she decides she's going to devote her life to finding this boy. It's all the way through adulthood. And then she embarks on this journey. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's constant, and then and then. There's no major conflict. There's no buildup. There's no denouement. It's just next event after next event. It got to the point where it felt like this person was trying to put everything but the kitchen sink in there. It was like, oh, I got to put her on the Underground Railroad. I've got to have her meet the indigenous people on the Trail of Tears. Oh, I've got to have her meet the Quakers. It's just like someone was doing a checklist of everything that should be covered if Yemaya had been around during the time of slavery, which she was, but we'll get back to that. The other thing I didn't like is, as a person who practices and a person who is surrounded by initiated people, I don't like the way Yemaya was portrayed. Yemaya was portrayed as being extremely passive. She was never passive, is never passive. Yemaya is one of those deities you don't play with, and she don't play about her kids. And so for her, the entire novel to need to be rescued, need to be protected, need to be saved, just would not happen. people would be going to her for help. And so for her needing to be rescued in the ocean is almost an insult because that's her domain. If anything, you need to be rescued from her. It might have better served the author if they brought in her sister Oshun and had Oshun on land and Yemaya in the ocean, but to have her as passive, have her as just a perpetual victim. Everything happens to her. She's powerless. She needs everyone to do everything for her. That is not Yemaya, and that was highly upsetting. That was definitely highly upsetting. The other thing I didn't like is, like I said, this should have been a young adult novel. So I like it for the fact that it can be, but I also dislike it because it wasn't marketed as that. It wasn't presented to me as that. So to have a book so simple and not in a good way, yeah, I didn't appreciate that. And I have to be honest, were it not for the fact that I was going to do a review, I would have DNF'd this book. I don't think I would have made it past the third of it. It was just, again, perpetual victimization of a very important deity in my life, Yemaya, and just perpetual and then. This book was just one long run on sentence with no depth, no reasoning. Why did she fall in love with Obatala with love at first sight? Like, of course, I understand the Yoruba lore about it, but why did she in this book, who was definitely written differently, why did she take one look at him and say, that's the man I'm going to be for the rest of my life? Why is she risking everyone's life to get to Obatala? Yemaya would never do that. So, yeah, it was definitely a DNF for me. Were I not reviewing it, it would have been a DNF about a third of the way through. All of that being said, if you're a young adult, this is definitely a good book for you. It's not too complicated, especially, when you're dealing with American history. You might be dealing with world history, but mostly American history. You're learning about slavery. Um, Assuming, of course, you're at least 13 years and older, I think that you can read this book. There's no sex in it. It's just implied that two people kind of, made love, kind of in a way that, like, Disney has two characters. They hug each other and then hearts pop up. And that kind of implies that's how the baby Disney character got there. It's kind of like that. It's nothing that if I were a parent, I would be upset with. So I will say, yes, if you are into YA novels, whether you are a young adult or you're an adult who just prefers YA novels, you're going to absolutely love this. If you know nothing about Yoruba culture, Yoruba spirituality, if you know nothing about Santeria, if you know nothing about Yemaya, and you're just kind of just interested, this will be okay for you because it's not an actual representation of them, though it tries to be. So it's not going to be anything that, like if you're Christian, where you're going to be concerned about whether or not you're breaking some sort of rules by reading this book. But as for everyone else, this is not the fantasy book that you're looking for. This is not the historical drama that you're looking for. And this most definitely is not a quality representation of Yemaya or Obatala. So unfortunately, I had to give this book 2 stars. Hopefully some of this author's other works turned out better than this, but this one was only 2 stars, and I think it kind of bites that I waited so long to read it because I just knew it was going to be good, and it's not. I did take that into consideration when it came to the rating because I was actually going to give it 1 star, but I decided to give it 2 stars because a lot of my disappointment was my own fault for waiting so long to read it. So, what about you guys? What do you have sitting on your shelf that you have waited far too long to read and probably may not like now that you're finally getting into it? Drop the name of the book in the comments below. Thanks for watching.